Here with reaction, former Secretary of State and Fox News contributor, our friend Mike Pompeo is back. Sir, welcome back. Great to have you.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be with you.
Mr. Secretary, we're worried about a two-front war. In the north, Hezbollah and Lebanon, and then, of course, Gaza. Now we have Iran threatening and warning Israel their time is up. At that point in time, I know Israel, it would be difficult, a two-front war. But if Iran involves itself, I would argue, and correct me if I'm wrong, its very existence would be hanging in the balance. To me, that would be a threat to the entire region, and maybe the consequences even worse. And I don't even want to go there. How bad would that be?
Yeah, it'd be deeply dangerous, Sean. And I frankly think we're pretty close to that today. I do think we have war at hand, this barbarity that we saw in the southern Israeli desert. We can't forget, as you mentioned in your opening monologue, 30 Americans killed. And the President of the United States travels to Israel and doesn't mention the address to which this should be held responsible, right? The Islamic Republic of Iran. I hope that we will continue to give Israel the space and the resources it needs to do the necessary for its own people, because it's necessary for Americans as well. There's still American hostages being held there as well. If we just get Hamas, that will be a good thing. It will save lives. It will eliminate one threat to the Jewish people in their homeland. But make no mistake about it, this came from Iran in spite of President Biden and his team's unwillingness to acknowledge that. They underwrote it. They trained them. They prepared them. There is no doubt they knew about this. And it will be their decision about whether Hezbollah comes in from the north, and that this is not inevitable. America can deter a two-front war for Israel, but it's going to require American leadership that I simply have not seen, and not appeasement. And the fact, Sean, that President Biden goes there and says, I'm going to give the Palestinians another $100 million of U.S. taxpayer money is exactly the kind of appeasement that brought us to the very day that we're sitting in right here today.
And by the way, the PA reports are that they're going to reward the families of October 7th, quote, terrorists with money, which they have done historically. You're right about the $100 million. Here's the problem. I've been in those tunnels that they dig with Israeli money, cement, electricity, American money, cement, electricity. In other words, the money that we sent for infrastructure, schools, hospitals, they use it to build tunnels to kill, the people in Israel. So why would Joe give them? It's not going to go to the Palestinian people. That money's going straight in Hamas's pocket. Am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. Just as we've been talking for years about the fact that the Obama and Biden administrations underwrote the Iranian regime. They have enforced sanctions. Iran now has some $50–60 billion more than they had when we left office in January of 2021. They gave $6 billion to get 5 hostages back. And now the Iranians shall hold more hostages than they did when we paid ransom for the previous hostages. This policy is all just messed up. It's backwards. Instead of being a close ally and friend of Israel, instead of recognizing that the Gulf Arab states want to find a concordat, they want to find a way forward. That's why we got the Abraham Accords. The Biden administration cozied up with the Iranians, with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and created the context against which the slaughter of 1,300 Israelis took place.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary. I know because I spoke to you when you were on the job as Secretary of State, and you were always in some country, but you had a great relationship with countries. Under the Trump administration, under your leadership, you forged relationships with America, with Israel, with the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Saudis, the Emirates, all to fight back against Iranian hegemony in the region. That is now gone. Well, how do you interpret that the Jordanians, Egyptians, even Abbas wouldn't meet with Joe Biden? How do you interpret that?
Sean, it's stunning. I try to imagine them checking out of a meeting with President Trump like that. We'd all been working on the tweet really quickly because
by the way, I mean, they're laughing because it's laughable. It wouldn't happen.
That's right. That's why it was a bit of a joke, and this is serious stuff. It wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have walked away because they would have known that they wanted to see the President of the United States and his Secretary of State, and they wanted to be part of the conditions that would have saved their lives too. This is not just, the Iranian regime is not just a threat to the people of Israel and the United States. They're launching missiles from Yemen into Saudi Arabia. They've killed people in Europe. This is a challenge that confronts all people who care about human dignity and decency. And so, when President Biden says, we're going to allow them to have a missile program, that we're going to let them build out their nuclear program, these are the signals that tell the Ayatollah and Raisi, the leaders of Iran, and the IRGC, it tells them green light, do precisely what it was they did on October 7th. And the world has changed. We now need to make sure we give Israel every space to do exactly what they need to do. And should America tell them to stop, I hope that they will choose not to listen, to do that which is necessary. They need to protect their borders in very much the same way that we have the responsibility to protect American sovereignty as well.
All right, Secretary Pompeo, always great to have you, sir. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.